So I got a chance to play the closed alpha for Turtle Rock Studios' Back 4 Blood, a spiritual successor to from the core developers of Left 4 Dead. Thanks very much to Stan for the key, by the way. It was an excellent Christmas gift. There's one mission with 4 maps to play through in this limited alpha, and everything is obviously subject to change, as is the nature of these things, so take anything shown or that I say here with a grain of salt. If you aren't in the know, Back 4 Blood is a 4-player co-op zombie survival FPS. You progress through levels, picking up gear as you go, defeating hordes of common zombies and spouts of more advanced mutations thereof. At the end of every level is a safe room with supplies to prepare you for the next area, much like the aforementioned Left 4 Dead. Constantly comparing it to Left 4 Dead may seem tiresome, but again, it's the same development team, and first impressions confirm what I expected from seeing trailers leading up to this alpha. Back 4 Blood is modernized Left 4 Dead. Same general game feel with improvements and polish from the genre as a whole implemented. If you like Left 4 Dead, you'll like Back 4 Blood, simple as that. Those improvements I'm referring to, by the way, are things such as aim down sights, which I don't personally consider a necessity in this style of shooter, but I absolutely won't say no to either. Basic parkour mechanics, like pulling yourself up onto short ledges, and most importantly to me, out-of-level progression. What I mean by that is, in Left 4 Dead, all progress made in a campaign is confined to that campaign. Picking up weapons, ammo, supplies, all of it will carry from safe room to safe room, but once you complete the campaign, you're back to square one. If there's one particular campaign you're having trouble with, then there's nothing you can really do other than practice at the game to better prepare for it. That's not necessarily bad, but it's certainly a relatively antiquated way of doing things. Back 4 Blood, by comparison, has the new cards system. Essentially, outside of missions, you can create decks for yourself. One card which you will always have equipped, and several which can show up in safe houses. These cards range from effects of starting with a different kind of weapon by default, having higher base HP, melee kills heal you, faster movement speed, all kinds of buffs ranging from small passive ones to those which need to be activated to take effect. The deck building sort of reminds me in a strange way of Magic the Gathering, deciding if I want to take a lot of generally useful cards or play around one big powerful card that I need to roll the dice on hoping to draw. It's a system that needs expounding upon, but it's an alpha after all. Contrasting this deck building, every level will play its own cards to randomize gameplay, spawning certain kinds of enemies, giving enemies buffs, so on and so forth. This in combination with the game director, another feature making a return from Left 4 Dead, where certain segments of the map, loot spawns, etc. will be randomized every playthrough. Things will be made easier on you if your team is taking a lot of damage and getting knocked down a lot, or harder if you're blasting through the level. Speaking of difficulty, on the lowest of the 3 difficulty settings, Classic Mode, I found it to be settled somewhere between the romp of Left 4 Dead 2 and the coordinated, careful gameplay of, say, GTFO. A comfortable spot to be in, provided you're willing to communicate with your team enough to warn them of enemies or, say, flocks of birds which can alert the horde if startled. Something I noticed is how straightforward combat could be, and maybe I'm just used to this kind of game, but all the common zombies have similar animations and movements. As a result, they all stood up at around the same height, meaning I could keep my crosshair level and pop headshots easily with my weapon of choice. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but seeing levels with more height variation, or zombies who attempt to duck and weave in the future, may up the difficulty in a more interesting way. The weapon selection, by the way, was more than I expected for an alpha. I only had enough time to play through the mission twice, but I got to use different assault rifles, pistols, melee weapons, and a sniper. Melee was surprisingly more effective than I'd assume, in tandem with cards upping their damage at least. Another new addition is that of the shop between levels inside of the safe room. Using copper, which can be found in piles around the map and is shared among your team when picked up, you can buy medkits, ammo, modifications for your weapons, scopes and the like. This effectively reduces the RNG of hoping for specific spawns I so often felt during Left 4 Dead 2, and gives the player more choice. I'm personally nothing but a fan of this, but let's get on to my gripes, and the thus the naming of this video. The ogre, that big old thing you saw in the trailer, it feels too big for the map to properly play around, having a hitbox larger than itself blocking your path, doing colossal damage and simply proving a bother more often than not. I like this enemy conceptually, but I could see dealing with running into it over and over growing tiresome across multiple playthroughs. Performance-wise, I was surprised to see the game running mostly smoothly until the very end of the mission where it simply tanks, but that's an alpha for you. But in and of itself, it worries me that the alpha is in the state it's in a mere, 6 months out from release? The game is currently slated for June of 2021, and while gameplay-wise the alpha is solid, it's still lacking in several departments. The controls are a little stiff, enemy AI is extremely predictable, even for zombies. This is all stuff that gets passes done on it in betas and near release, but in only half a year? Contrasting that, the visuals and characters are surprisingly complete. There's a lot of dialogue and banter between one another, although it can get repetitive fast. But with the final version of the game promising 8 characters to choose from, I'm sure the variation will be enough to stave off hearing the same lines over and over. My main point here being that it's weird for an alpha to still have sort of stiff gameplay, but have such near finished looking art passes. My hope is that the alpha build we've been presented is an earlier version of the game, maybe with some finished assets thrown in for a prettier presentation, and that Turtle Rock have further iterated upon the engine and gameplay in different, presumably less stable builds. We'll simply have to see. It's literally an alpha after all. Things are absolutely subject to change. And my final big worry is the business model. The game is up for pre-order at $60, standard AAA price, and the usual crap of having a deluxe and ultimate edition for more, of course. But one more than that, something dubbed an annual pass for impending DLC is on offer. The wording here is a little vague. What I'm assuming they mean is a season pass for a guaranteed year of content. However, annual could also imply you to only get the bonuses for a year before having them removed. Business models are, again, something we'll have to wait until closer to release to really get a feel for, but you can't blame me for being skeptical in the modern era of DLC, microtransactions, and gacha. Alright, wrapping this up by getting back to what I like about Back 4 Blood. Overall, I'm excited for the full game. I played through the mission a couple times, getting some help from some surprisingly kind randos, and the second playthrough didn't quite play like the first, with enough areas being manipulated to keep me guessing. This is absolutely the kind of game I could see myself playing and streaming with friends regularly to blow off steam. It's not a mindless bash, but won't take up all my focus on its difficulty. Having controllable bonus effects via the cards is an excellent addition, and above all else, the game is fun. Like, solidly enjoyable overall. The level design is visually clear and varied, even within the single mission, using bright spots of color and lighting to direct the player's view to the objective. Looting and shooting feels rewarding, the weapons pack a punch, full controller support, full subtitling, customizable video settings, and key bindings are all very much appreciated so early on. It's modern Left 4 Dead, and I don't mean that badly in any way at all. The game plays like you'd expect, if, again, a little stiff for now. I've been wanting a new co-op shooter to sink my teeth into, one I haven't already tapped everything I could get out of. And I've gotten a little bored of zombies overall, but I trust the reputation of Turtle Rock Studios to hold true here. They've gotten this genre right in the past, and barring a few worries, I'm optimistic for the future of Back 4 Blood. Merry Christmas, everyone! Please take care of yourselves, wear a mask, and wash your hands. Thanks for watching, stay safe, and take it easy.